After we get done at the Continental Congress, we can move on. We can deliver this letter to a soldier we find nearby.
Hold and state your business!
I'm over here. Oh, okay, so you're blind then. Okay, I gotcha.
I'm looking for Israel Putnam.
On whose orders?
Samuel Adams.
Follow me.
It's not Bunker Hill.
Aye, it's Breach.
The Battle of Bunker Hill. Date June 17th, 1775. Bunker Hill was one of the first battles of the Revolutionary War. Technically, the rebels lost, but it was a Pyrrhic victory for the British. Let me set this up a bit. There were two places where rebel forces would have been able to mount attacks on British-occupied Boston. One was the Charleston Peninsula to the north. The other was Dorchester Heights to the south. When rumor started that the British were going to fortify the hills around Charleston, the rebels decided to act. By which I mean do something, not put on a little play. On the night of June 1675, troops under the command of William Prescott snuck onto the peninsula, occupied Bunker Hill, and built fortifications on Breed's Hill. It was a tactically terrible choice. Breed's Hill was easier for enemies to climb, much more open to attack, and close enough to the British ships in the harbor to come under fire. In fact, Prescott's orders were to fortify Bunker Hill. It's uncertain why he made the switch. Maybe he had trouble with B words like bunker and breeds. He probably thought he was fighting against the Belgians, not the Brits. Fortunately for the rebel army, it seemed the British were almost as tactically inept as they were. When General Howe landed troops at Moulton's Hill, he waited for reinforcements rather than attacking immediately. This gave the rebel forces time to shore up their fortifications. When Howe finally did attack, he divided his forces, expecting the disorganized rebel army to fall before him, which it didn't. In fact, the British forces attacked and retreated twice before winning the day, after they'd received more reinforcements, and the rebels were mostly out of ammunition. The casualty reports are telling. 228 British soldiers dead, including many of their officers, and more than 800 injured. On the rebel side, 301 injuries and 140 deaths. The Continental Army had shown they could hold their own against the better-trained British Army, and it's hard to say which side was more surprised by that. It still surprises me to this day. They implemented tactics such as guerrilla warfare. The British were always in nice, neat lines. They'd fire, they'd duck, the second row would fire, so on and so forth. While the second line was firing, the first line would reload, etc. The Patriots at the time took cover behind things, a very poorly looked upon way of fighting. It was cowardice. And now, I mean, it's how everybody fights. People take cover, they run from things, you do what you can to survive now. Anyways, moving on. The Siege of Boston. Dates are April 19th through March 17th. That's 1775 and 1776 respectively. The siege of Boston began right after the battles of Lexington and Concord. The colonial militia who had gathered to stop the British raids following the British Army to Boston and camped outside, bottling British troops and their loyalist allies in the city. At the time, Boston was a peninsula attached to the mainland by a thin strip of land known as Boston Neck. With this blocked, land access to the city was cut off. The siege lasted for most of a year, with only one major battle, Bunker Hill. But, as with most sieges, it took a toll on the city of Boston. There were shortages, particularly of firewood, and many buildings were torn down to be used as fuel. Of course, the British targeted any rebel-associated buildings for destruction. As a result, things like the Liberty Tree and the pews from the Old South Meeting House ended up inside a fireplace. The siege ended shortly after the rebels attacked and fortified Dorchester Heights to the south of Boston, giving them the ability to fire on the harbor. Boston's governor decided to evacuate rather than fight. On March 17th, Loyalist ships sailed out of the city. March 17th is now known as Evacuation Day and is a holiday in some parts of Massachusetts. The fact that it is also St. Patrick's Day is mere coincidence, though it is said that in ancient Gaelic, evacuation means drinking as many pints as possible and being sick in a bin. So, you never know.
There's been some disagreement as to where we should encamp.
Any news from Boston?
The Tories aren't moving, and any time we try to press them, we lose a dozen men. I think Putnam and the others plan to assemble artillery on these hills. A good shelling might make the Redcoats rethink their strategy.
And what of John Pitcairn?
That bastard's the cagiest of the bunch. He's appeared time to taunt us, so send regards by way of cannon fire. It's all right, though. He'll have what's coming to him soon enough.
Man, if I were the king, I'd be super mad, too. I mean, these guys are all British citizens, really. And, they're using British weapons. Like, I guess some of them probably aren't British weapons, but still.
I don't care much for you. We should be building on Bunker Hill. Breeds is closer to the city, but it is also closer to their artillery.
Our orders came from men so divorced from the situation.
Bunker Hill. This is the largest hill on the Charleston Peninsula and the closest to the mainland. During the Battle of Bunker Hill, rebel reinforcements arriving on the Charleston Peninsula headed to Bunker Hill, but weren't sure what to do once they got there. Rather than joining the battle, which was raging on Breed's Hill nearby, they wandered aimlessly around Bunker Hill, so disorganized they hadn't even brought a picnic. I don't get it. Israel Putnam was here attempting to direct troops, giving valuable instructions, such as the famous "don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes," which he probably said several times, so anyone who'd listen, and to be fair, it's a pretty great quote. That seems to be the only one of his directions that stuck. Many of his other orders were either misunderstood or deliberately disobeyed. Given the disorganized state of the Continental Army at the time, it was probably a little of both.
We are compelled by reason to employ our own faculties.
to Bunker Hill! Good day, gentlemen!
General Putnam,
What?
I'm looking for John Pitcairn. I was told you would be able to help me find him.
He's tucked away inside that city with no reason to leave. As long as that ship continues its assault, we'll never flush him out.
But if the ship was silenced,
Oh, that poor might be forced to get off his arse and come forward.
I shall fly this flag to signal my success.
And I shall speak fondly of you at your funeral.
Israel Putnam, born 1718, more affectionately known as Old Put, is something of a legendary figure in Revolutionary history, and possibly its best-known soldier. A bit of a folk hero, if you will. Putnam was born in Massachusetts, but later moved to Connecticut to take up farming. He's credited with killing the last wolf in the colony, crawling into its den with a musket, a torch, and a rope tied around his feet so he could be pulled back out. He really didn't like wolves. Oh, and I believe I mentioned he was a folk hero. That's only part of it. He joined the colonial militia during the French and Indian War, where he earned a reputation for bravery and inspiring the soldiers around him. He was captured by a group of Canaan Kehaka in 1758 and rescued just before he was to be executed. In 1762, he was shipwrecked in Cuba while on a campaign there, where, you'll love this, he learned about cigars. He became a habitual smoker and is credited with introducing the cigar to the colonies. After the war ended, Putnam returned to Connecticut, where he was a vocal opponent of the British tax policies that led to the Revolution. He founded the Connecticut branch of the Sons of Liberty. When he heard about the Battle of Lexington and Concord, he immediately signed up for the Continental Army and was named Brigadier General of the Connecticut Forces. He commanded troops at Bunker Hill, and the near success of the rebels there sealed his reputation. Washington had high hopes for Putnam as a leader, and he was named Washington's second-in-command in New York, just prior to the Battle of Long Island. Unfortunately, Putnam was a good soldier but poor tactician. The battle at Long Island was a rout. Putnam fared no better at his next post, guarding forts on the Hudson River, where he was outmatched by General Henry Clinton. After that, Putnam requested to be assigned to recruitment, and Washington agreed. Still, at least he had his cigars. Okay, so we're going to have to make it down this hill, which is being bombarded, through that town that's being bombarded, to get out to a ship that's bombarding, and stop it from bombarding. Simple enough. Charlestown is the name of both the small town to the north of Boston and the peninsula that it sits on. The peninsula was the site of the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was sometimes called the Battle of Charlestown, since the fighting did span across more than one hill. This is also where Paul Revere started his well-known midnight ride, which I still think sounds more like something you'd do with a lady. As to the town of Charlestown, well, while it was established prior to 75, little of it survived the Battle of Bunker Hill. Continental Army snipers were stationed here to harass British troops, and the British set fire to the town to root them out. Most of the buildings were razed, and the rest were burned during a raid in January of 76. The only part of the town to survive the war was the street layout. Charlestown was rebuilt, however. It's now a part of Boston. got hit by it, I don't think we'd have made it. We'll pretend that in real life things don't have physics either. We got clutching next on these guys. Alright. Well, here we go. The ship is about 100 meters away. Looks like we're swimming there. Breed's Hill. Technically, the Battle of Bunker Hill could have been called the Battle of Breed's Hill. This is where the Continental Army built their main fortifications, and so most of the fighting happened here. Breed's Hill had only one thing to recommend it over Bunker Hill. It was closer to Boston, which made it easier to fire artillery at the city. Though, of course, one disadvantage of this situation was that it was also a lot easier for Boston to fire back. Nobody knows why William Prescott chose this spot over Bunker Hill. It is possible that since he was working on fortifications in the dark, Prescott didn't realize how vulnerable the hill actually was until the sun rose, by which point it was a little too late to up and move. I imagine that was probably quite an awkward moment. That's if it's true. Why am I getting that one now is kind of a weird question. I should have had that one before when we mentioned the hill itself. Now the Second Continental Congress, which I must have missed. The Second Continental Congress, in light of the bloody events in Massachusetts, a Second Continental Congress representing all 13 colonies has convened in the city of Philadelphia. The Congress will attempt to order the military situation in accord with agreement along all the colonies. It will seek, as well as center parleys with London in one place and with all colonies in unison. The second Congress will be presided over by John Hancock of Boston, as Peyton Randolph is not in good health and cannot continue his duties from the previous such Congress. In these few months since the glorious battles of Lexington and Concord, the military effort has been ad hoc. Various militias have driven out Tory officials and seized royal munitions. Thereunto, the first accomplishment of the assembled representatives has been to create from the several colony militias a single continental army, and to name a general to lead it. General George Washington of Virginia, who saw considerable duty in the French War, is to be commander-in-chief, with Artemus Ward, Charles Lee, Philip Schuyler, and Israel Putnam as Majors General. Congress has also exerted itself in the mercantile interests of the 13 colonies. All American ports are now open, mooting the odious Navigation Acts. Despite the creation of the Continental Army, the Congress expects that the division between all colonies and the Crown to be eventually be set right to the benefit of all. To this end, the Congress has approved the Olive Branch Petition to the British Crown in a gesture of reconciliation. Once we get out of the water, we can follow the Patriot back to General Putnam.
The enemy advances. They tremble. They better numbers, you say. Better weapons, better training. But I do not fear. And neither should you. For what they have in material, they lack in conviction and care. But not us. We have discipline. We have order. And most importantly, we have passion. We believe. So maintain vigilance. Conserve your ammo. Ensure a proper line of sight. And above all else, men, do not fire until you see the whites of their eyes. Well, I'll be damned. You did it.
That was quite a speech.
Lies, all of it, I'm afraid. Still, such words have carried us thus far.
And what of Pitcairn?
He's left Boston, as I said he would, and set up camp on Molten Hill. There's no good way to get at him. Not with that maelstrom brewing down below. I suppose you could circle around a bit, and wait for us to thin their ranks.
There is no time. I will have to chance a direct approach.
That's twice today you've proposed the impossible.
I see no other choice.
Not because you're mad as a March hare, son.
I expect an apology on my return.
Malton's Hill, the lowest hill on the Charleston Peninsula, standing at 32 feet, or about 10 meters high. It is sometimes referred to as Malton's Hill or Malton's Point. This is where General Howe's troops landed during the Battle of Bunker Hill. Boston's usually on the opposite side of the peninsula, but Howe took the longer route round to outflank the revolutionaries on the left side. That was his excuse for taking the long route anyway, and he was sticking to it. However, Howe made a mistake when he arrived. He saw Continental troops on Bunker Hill and assumed they were newly arrived reinforcements. They were mostly just confused and milling around like aimless youths outside of a shopping mall. Howe halted to wait for his own reinforcements, which gave the Continental Army time to shore up weak spots in their defenses. This made the battle much longer and more difficult than it might have really been. It also means there was an advantage to the chaos in the Continental Army that day. They managed to confuse their enemy as well as themselves. It's not a bad tactic. To this day, if anyone starts on me, I just spin around and shout about tables until they are too confused and amble off. Alright, so we just gotta break through this gunfire and mortar fire, cannon fire, whatever, and move up and kill a general behind enemy lines. Easy enough. Anyways, I bet it's really weird for these guys to be doing this stuff. Not to be fighting. It's whatever. Most of these guys probably don't know the other guys, but older gents, Putnam and Washington and all those guys, I mean, they knew, or still know, some of these British generals. It'd probably be really weird. It'd be like if we were all in the military and also like Iraq was also in our military, and then we went to fight them. You know what I mean? Like, we'd become friends with some of them and then end up fighting them later for, you know, some cause or whatever, I guess. It's a little bit different than that, for sure, but still. Alright, we can sneak above these guys. Hopefully they'll be dealt with. There's so many more of them. I mean, look at the mini-map. Hopefully we don't get spotted. Yep, looks like we might get spotted. Alright, time to fight. Or run, maybe. Yeah, let's run. I'll just yell, "Wrong time, wrong place, guys. Sorry, I didn't mean it." Oh, it's stuck in a rock. Thank you for getting me out of there. Dude, stop. We got a little update for John Pitcairn. It's historically debated whether Pitcairn went to Lexington and Concord to seize weapon stores or to find and arrest John Hancock and Samuel Adams, who were hiding in Lexington at the time. Possibly it was a little of both. Pitcairn's story is that he wanted to find Adams and Hancock to negotiate with them, and he would have been the ideal person to do it. I'm still puzzled as to why he'd try to negotiate a truce with an army at his back, though. It sort of sends the wrong message, don't you think? We're being very, very quiet. We're not hunting for rabbits. We're hunting for John Pitcairn. Come on, dude, move. Is he just gonna stand there? Come here, you. Come to me. Oh, hey, you wait. And now they're both there. Well, okay, well, apparently maybe we got away. Perfect. Cool. Alright, let's see what we got going on here. Oh gosh, he's so far away. Maybe this tree. Alright, this might be good enough. Come on, dude. Do it. I think the flagpole's in the way. Oh, okay, we can land on it. You got it.
Why did you do this?
To protect Adams and Hancock and those they serve, you meant to kill them.
Kill them? Are you mad? I wanted only to parley. There was so much to discuss, to explain. You put an end to that now.
If you speak true, then I will carry your last words to them.
They must lay down their arms. They must stop this war.
Why them and not the Redcoats?
Do you not think we asked the same question of the British? These things take time. And it would have succeeded had you let me play my part.
Part of the puppeteer.
Or better, we hold the strings on another.
No, the strings should be severed. All should be free.
And we should live forever on castles in the sky. You wield your blade like a man, but your mouth like a child. And more will die now. Because of it.
Sahoin jänerene o teena om da settakwe. Tini o ne jaho teena tam da settakwe.
How dare you sneak up on me like that? Why don't you just go out there and just help this camp retreat? Don't ever do that again, you hear me? God damn it!
General Putnam.
You live.
The same cannot be said for Pitcairn.
Well done, I suppose. But it matters little now. I'm ordering a full retreat. We have lost too many in exchange for too little. If the Tories want this hill so badly, let them have it. Boston is the true prize.
We have a bigger problem.
What do you mean? This can't be right. It says they plan to murder Washington.
Oh, it just got serious. Anyways, we're gonna end it there. Thank you so much for watching. We completed sequence 7, so that's cool. Like, comment, subscribe, dislike, whatever. And goodbye.